my God. Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time and Community Talks. We're on here daily at 4:30 talking to local entrepreneurs and business owners about how they're adapting and how they're providing their service during COVID-19. So today we have Bruce Carter. He owns WES-TECH Irrigation. He's the former CEO, is that the right term?
Former CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, yeah.
Yep. So he's owned WES-TECH Irrigation for 4 years, and I have to admit, did you have a background in irrigation before you went into that?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because I mean, I was a customer here at the store, so I got to know it that way. But before I was at the Chamber, I was a naval officer for I don't know how many years, and sort of moving water around in ships and pumps and fire mains and stuff. It's all kind of the same theory, a little different application.
A little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So did you have to learn, like, this is kind of an interesting story because I think there are going to be people who are going to be changing industries. So did you learn from the bottom up or literally?
Absolutely, yeah. So, you know, there was an existing core of staff here that knew their irrigation pretty well. And then, you know, my job was to go out and learn how to do that. And, you know, so I took the professional courses, went out in the field and spent time with folks, and then you know, went through and studied the products and did those things. And you know, it's a funny thing because, you know, we have lots of people who are customers and they know their equipment, and we'll even bring some of those in as employees. And I say, wow, it's interesting, you know, that valve. Well, now that you work at the irrigation store, you just need to know every valve, right? And you need to know every part. So, you know, it was one of those, it's a lot of information to gather. And I think going back to that technical background that I had from the Navy, it fit okay.
Good. So I imagine your business has changed a lot with COVID-19. Can you tell us what adaptations you've had to make to ensure your business has been able to run smoothly with the physical distancing and all those other factors?
Sure. You know, we're a relatively small footprint in what is mainly a seasonal industry. So, you know, we counted a lot on packing as many people as we could into the store and getting them through the tills, and you know, and it was a pretty crazy place in the spring. You know, and as COVID came, we kind of went, oh, well, I guess we're going to limit the number of people in the store to 5. Well, how are we going to make money as we do that? How are we going to service people? And you know, what do we do? So, you know, we came with the adage that we'll leave no phone unanswered. An interesting thing. So we've actually had to set up a small call center, and so we're working on that. We've got an online website up and running. We've limited the number of people in the store to 5, and put up the plexiglass screens, and they're cleaning all the stuff. And then we said that we'll deliver anything to anybody anywhere in Victoria, and so we're doing that and running stuff out. And you know, so that combination of deliveries and phone orders and you know, a lineup outside and trying to reserve space in the parking lot, and you know, and cones out every morning so everybody can stand 6 feet apart is kind of the norm. And as I was saying to the staff earlier, I said, you know, that whole 5 people in the store thing, I think that's going to last at least until the end of this year, if not longer. I don't know. So
really?
Yeah, I think so.
Why do you think that? Like, do you think just because of the physical distancing that?
It's physical distancing, right? And that's not going to go away probably until we have a vaccine, is my guess. And you know, I think I'm even being optimistic at this year.
Well, you know, I don't think there's going to be a vaccine. I think we're all setting ourselves up for a very an unreasonable goal. I mean, the way that medicine works, I think that creating a vaccine in such a short time is going to be really hard. You know, you have to go through medical testing and all of that stuff. I mean, as somebody pointed out today, there's no vaccine for AIDS, and that's been around at least since '80. So we'll see.
Yeah, I go back to the business side, and our job is to adapt. You know, you have a plan, and how well you end up isn't how well you planned. It's how well you execute it and how well you adapt it as things change. So I know, you know, our call center has been doing really well. Well, now we've got a problem that we've got enough orders that we can't pick them, and I can't get any more staff in the small space that I've got the call center in. So this weekend, my lovely wife Beverly and I are going to be moving the call center to a different spot in the building, and we'll adapt the way we operate. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, so it's just about how do you adapt, not, you know, things aren't going to be the same. And I don't think that they just won't be the same, and we're going to need to adapt to that reality.
Yeah. And I think it'll just be okay, whatever. You know what? People will still want to get irrigation in their gardens. I think it's a good, I was sort of thinking the powers that be that at least we're not in the southern hemisphere and we're not going into winter and getting longer days and it's colder and yucky. At least we have like a great environment to live in and a lot of people can spend time outdoors. So, okay, let's talk about your business then. So why irrigate? Why have water on a planned route through your garden?
Well, pretty much no reason. Well, no, and it's an interesting thing because nobody wants an irrigation system. What we want are green plants and a healthy ecosystem around. We want the flowers to look nice. We want the grass to be green. We don't want the rhododendron to die. We want to attract birds. We want to have all of. So we're talking about how we maintain that environment, and I think that's the thing that I tell people. Well, what kind of irrigation do I need? Well, what kind of plants do you have? What kind of plants do you want? Do you have a cedar hedge? Are you growing vegetables? I said, because you don't need an irrigation system. You need healthy plants. And the job of the irrigation system is to get water when and where it needs to be. And that's very plant dependent.
Right. So you have to look at the purpose and then plan around the purpose.
Yeah. And some of that stuff can get kind of interesting because, the north side of your house isn't the same as the south facing side of your house. So, you start to look at those types of things. So not only can plants that you grow on the south side are different. Well, the watering is different on the south side, same thing as watering on the north side.
Yeah, this is very interesting. It just made me realize that when people buy a house, we just think, okay, we write in the irrigation system, but really, and we do look at the garden, but we never analyze whether or not it's sufficient or actually meets the purpose of the garden for which it was designed.
Well, and you can have that circumstance where, the people who had the house had lots of time and, they loved spending 2 hours a day out there with a hose and it was great. And then, a young family moves in and, working parents and kids at school and you're going, nobody has time to water this. Right. What do we do now? So we get that kind of thing happening, kind of going, oh, wow, I don't know how they did this before.
I have a question. It isn't something we talked about before, but I'm wondering, are people more concerned with food security now and developing like vegetable gardens?
We're certainly seeing that this year, and I think that's a trend that we're going to see a lot more. So we're going to see a lot more raised vegetable beds and gardening in your home, and I think we'll see an uptake in sort of backyard greenhouses as well. I think they've always been around, but I don't know that they've been that popular, and I think they're going to be. So I know that agricultural product, something we call drip tape, we have sold out of twice already this year, and it's only mid-May. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I imagine probably in addition to irrigation, there's probably opportunity if people wanted to get into the gardening industry to teach people how to maintain their garden, right?
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. I mean, there's, as I say to people, I know 2 plants, right? I know tomatoes, and you don't want to get your tomatoes wet, and I know lettuce, and you need to get that wet. And that is my example for, when people are going, they say, well, what do you want for a spray? I said, well, is it a tomato or is it lettuce? I go, well, no, it's a rhododendron. I don't know. But back to knowing how that works. So I can tell you that our customers that are out there that are irrigation installers, lots of them have a background in plants and horticulture and horticulture degrees, and they're great because they're going to get the right plants in the right places with the right amount of water and how it all works.
Right. Okay, so somebody wants a garden watered but not their lawn. How easy is that to install a system?
Easy, I don't know. I mean, depends how many rocks you got, I guess. But and that's always one of the challenges we have here. I guess when one of the things that used to happen in irrigation systems, we'd water the front, we'd water the back, and yeah, we're pretty good. And now you need to make sure that you have separate zones for those garden areas because there will be times of the year where you can't get water to the grass or you don't want to because it's not appropriate to do that. So, you can do that. If you've got an existing irrigation system it's pretty simple to add a zone to that.
Right.
And we can help you out getting sort of the parts and pieces that you need and thinking about where you go and designing that system. There's lots of resources available online to do that, and lots of parts. You need to be kind of handy in order to make that happen, and you need to be prepared to dig because People will often say, well, how deep do I want to get this stuff? Well, deep enough that when you're doing something else, you don't break it. You know, the common one is, well, how deep do I need these in my lawn? Well, deeper than you aerate for sure, because you don't want to poke holes every 6 inches. I mean, it seems obvious, but it's one of those challenges that is there, right? So, so thinking about that, and then knowing what you're going to plant, what you're going to do, and where it is, and you can either hire one of the many irrigation installers to do that, or you can do it yourself.
Do what?
To install a new zone or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fan of, if there's big work to be done, there isn't an irrigation company, I don't think, that's taken more than 2 days to do an irrigation install.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to people who are, well, I've been working on this irrigation zone for 2 years and I'm going to get it in. And you're kind of going, if you hired somebody, got it in, then you could just do maintenance. And, when you break something, you come in, get a part and fix that.
Have you been talking to my husband?
There are some technical pieces to this, because you only have so much water, so you can only use so much water. So
right.
That's one of the first questions we ask someone is, so, well, how much water do you have? And they go, lots. And we go, well, we kind of need to know how much pressure and how much flow and how many gallons per hour, because we'll actually go through and do a calculation of how many sprinkler heads you have, how much water do they use. We can't use more water than what you have.
Right.
You use more water than what you have, the system doesn't work, and then you've done a bunch of install for something that is.
Do you recommend irrigating it in the evening so you have less evaporation of water?
Well, once again, depends on where you're at. Most of the time, you're probably better off in early morning. And I say that because if you irrigate in the evening, you can end up in a circumstance where the plants are wet overnight.
Right.
And then that can actually encourage mold and mildew. So depending on the plants, grass is not too bad, but certainly shrubs and stuff, early morning is better.
Okay. Okay. And then what about pots and stuff? Like some people, like for us, we actually do a lot of pots in our backyard. Mainly because we don't want to water our whole yard. So do you have like a drip irrigation system that you install for something like that?
Yeah, so drip irrigation is usually the best way to do that. And what you try and find a way to do is to run just a distribution line along the perimeter of a deck or a patio, and then just bring little spaghetti tubing or 1/4-inch tubing in with the appropriate sprayer on the end of that. And I always put a valve on every one of those, because apparently not all pots always need water, and there isn't always a pot where I thought there was a pot when we started. It's a living thing, right? So things move, things change. The boss decides that something else is going to happen on the patio. So you can turn them on or off and add to them or subtract to them and adjust them. And then try and get it all tuned so that your watering time stays the same. So the big pots should have more sprayers or more capacity. Little ones should have a little, so that when watering for 30 minutes is good, and then it becomes 30 degree in May, I don't know where that one came from. You can increase it all by a couple minutes, and they all kind of stay the same way. Right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you can sort of slide it up and down.
Huh. Okay. And then, so tell me, when should people start thinking about doing this? When's the easiest time of the year to start installing irrigation systems? Because I imagine in the summer it gets like a bit dry and hard, the dirt hard, right?
Well, I guess I'd go the other way. You're right, the dirt gets very hard when it's dry. Ideally, you want to get it in before the growing season. So if you're going to put an irrigation system into an existing lawn or to your flower gardens, it's nice to rip all that stuff up. You kind of make a mess a little bit and then cover it all over. And then as the growing season starts, all of that work kind of disappears about the time that you're in your yard or your garden and that's happening. If you're doing that work yourself, then, sort of later in the spring, sort of February, March is a good time. If you're going to get a contractor to do it, December and January are perfect.
Right.
Well, because most of them are trying to keep their crews busy, and they say, hey, if you want to get an install in December, we'll give you a discount because we're trying to stay busy, and they'll do what's called a dry install. So what they'll do is they'll install the whole system. And they won't even put water to it. They'll just leave it the way that it is, and then in the spring, a part of the install is they'll come and start it up and make sure nothing leaks and that it all runs. But the work was done much like months before.
So speaking of that, do you guys do blowouts?
No, so we don't do any maintenance. We're the parts guys. So we're the parts supplier. So we supply all those experts that are out there, and you know, if you've got an irrigation system, having somebody who's, you know, your irrigation person who comes and does the blowout and sort of says, hey, you know, it looks like somebody hit the, you know, on those 2 days of snow, looks like somebody got that sprinkler head, so we'll fix it up as we start the year and do the, you know, and then turn it off at the end of the year, is a good investment.
Yeah, I think so. Well, you know, as I get older, I realize that although, you know, I could probably learn all this stuff, a specialist is going to do it way more effectively and efficiently than I am. So hire the pros, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, there's lots of people say, oh, I don't need to blow out. It never gets cold in Victoria. And I tell you, every year we've had a cold snap of 3 or 4 days, which is all it takes for people to go in and say, I don't know what happened with this. I said, well, I can tell you what happened. It's all pushed apart, you know, and it froze. Well, it couldn't have froze. Oh no, it froze. But it's brass. Yeah, and it just pushes it apart. Water is a very powerful thing.
How deep do you have to be to avoid the
Freezing?
freezing? Yeah, 6 inches here, or?
Well, water lines are supposed to be, what, 36 inches down? You know, it's like the water main to your house. So, you know, that's sort of building code. If you blow out your irrigation system, you're never going to get all the water out, but you're going to get enough out that whatever freezes isn't going to be under pressure and break something. You know, and even if you're down 12 inches, you got to remember that you have a sprinkler head that is providing a conduit for cold from the surface down to that area, right? So,
right, yeah.
And it's not generally the lines themselves. It's wherever the low spot is, or where a sprinkler head is, or where the valves are, which happens to be where all the expensive stuff is. So it really is worthwhile to get it blown up.
Okay, so I've got your contact information here. How do people work with you now?
Well, probably the starting point these days is to go to irrigation.ca and have a look and see whether or not the resources that you need are there. If you're just after a couple of parts, you should be able to go to the online store and have a look for a sprinkler head or whichever one you have and do that. We have an online catalog there. We've got like a flipped catalog. We also have a series of resources and videos and links to other things. And then, you know, failing all of that, then it's one of those, maybe give us a call and say, hey, I've got this, you know, can you help me? If it's an irrigation thing, we'll be able to help you, because to be quite honest, if we can't, nobody can. It's our business, right? I mean, it's like a plumber.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you are a plumber.
Yeah. We're irrigation. So, and the difference is non-drinkable water, by the way. So
okay, potable versus non-potable.
Non-potable, right? So all irrigation is non-potable. It's one of the things we have to teach lots of folks. So we're all non-potable, but you know, then do that and see what's going on. The number of parts that we see people bring in that are pretty common, and that's okay. It's a little bit more of a challenge with the COVID thing happening, because we kind of stand about 6 feet away and go, well, look at that, read that, tell me what it is. But even, you know, emailing a picture of your problem, you know, and say, hey, this is my challenge. Email it off, and then phone and say, you know, do you have one of these? Can I get one of those? What do I need to know to get one?
Right.
You know, one of the common ones is, you know, somebody, I don't know who, ran over a sprinkler with a lawnmower. It wasn't me. It's never the person. You know, and so you kind of say, well, okay, I need you to go and have a look at the other sprinkler heads on the same zone in the lawn and take pictures of those, because the one that you hit is destroyed, so I can't see what's there. Said, and then I need to know what the pattern of that spray is. And then I said, and then you say, and I need to know how far it shoots, so you need to measure how far it needs to go. Because if you say, oh, 10, 15 feet, I'm going to go, is it 10 or is it 15? Because it matters in all those things. And those are, you know, that's relatively easy if you live within 2 minutes of the store. But, you know, if you're a fair ways away and you're kind of going, oh, I didn't measure it, and it's a long ways to drive. So hopefully we can get that kind of information ready so that when people come in, we can help them out with whatever they need and get them back on the road and get their yard green again.
Yeah, and I imagine that that's only for people who are doing it themselves. The pros know exactly what they're looking for, right?
Oh, the pros will know exactly what they're looking for, and chances are they have a truck with a lot of stuff in it. Oh, that's one of those. We've got those. I mean, we spend a lot of time in the early spring actually outfitting the professionals' trucks. All right, here's the repair fittings I need. Here are the sprays that I need. Here's a few of those types of things. Most of those guys know the value of driving to the irrigation store and picking up a part.
Yeah.
Because it's a billable hour or it's not a billable hour, one or the other. So most of those folks are pretty good. They'll know exactly what it is. So that's kind of fun. And that and the other thing that people that sometimes find is surprising is size matters. Oh, is that a 1/2 inch pipe or 3/4? Well, I don't know. Well, it matters.
Well, I know for our house, we didn't even know there was an irrigation system. It was kind of half put in, and we've been trying to work with it, and then we put it in, and I was like, oh my God, it's so challenging because just the looking at the spray zone that we want and the depth, and I just think this is not something that I want to learn how to do. So I appreciate the expertise. How long have your employees been working for you? Are they trained by you, or do they come to you trained?
A bit of both. So we do a lot of in-house training. We've got one guy who was a contractor for 17 years who's on the staff. Another one who's doing landscaping for 15, and then we've got a couple of other people who were in related fields in plumbing and haven't done much irrigation but understand the basics, and we've taken them on courses and taught them those pieces. One of the big things for us is sort of knowing the product. One of the things we say is that everything has a specification, and it's not our customer's job to know the specification. That's ours.
Right.
Somebody says, well, this worked in that application. It's our job to say, well, this is what it will do. Is that the application that you have? And we've got cupboards full of catalogs and resources and access to the manufacturers that lots of people don't have.
Are people moving away? Like when I show a picture of a house, it's pretty funny. Often, I showed a picture of a listing that I had, and I didn't even realize that the grass was brown because I'm so used to looking at it in Victoria. Is that more normal now? And then people are just focusing more on the gardens on the side?
Well, it's more common. I actually think it's going to go the other way. I mean, grass has kind of gotten a bad rap in the last little while, right? We shouldn't water our grass because it's not good for the environment. Well, it's actually not true, right? Green grass will lower the temperature around your house. It will moderate the humidity. It will sequester carbon dioxide. It will trap dust. It'll reduce noise, as will the rest of your the plants around your house. So making sure that stuff is relatively healthy is actually good. And I think that we're going to see a bit of a return to people really caring about the environment around their houses and doing those things. And I think, I think there are lots of alternatives to grass, but ideally they're a green alternative that helps continue to foster that environment. Grass isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I have a friend in Toronto who replaced his green grass with astroturf, and it ended up being so hot they couldn't use the backyard.
Well, and I say that people say, oh, well, what kind of irrigation system do you want to have for your astroturf or and I go, well, no, I don't. Well, no, you actually need to clean it because the dog still pees on it, and it gets incredibly hot.
Yeah.
So all of the turf fields have an irrigation system that's no different than if it was grass, because it still needs to be irrigated, not to be green or to grow, but it still needs irrigation to be cleaned and cooled down and those types of things. And I'm not sure.
I don't think it'll last. I think it's a fad. And to me, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of turf. I understand it. There are people who live in other provinces or whatever who own here and they put the turf in. I get why they do that, but I also find that Uh, what happens is the weeds are actually growing up between the two pieces of the turf. So the weeds are going to grow anyway.
No, and it's not an easy install to do. The artificial turf. I mean, you might as well be putting down pavers and then you put artificial turf on top. And that's the kind of preparation that needs to be done for that. And once again, I don't know if that's necessarily a good drainage thing or positive for the environment. I think that what I see out here are people talking about, how they want to have things green, how they want to have things healthy, how they want to be closer to nature and literally attract, birds and other things and have that around your house. And, honeybees are really important, and you can't have that if you don't have plants and a healthy place to do that. And, and I guess the other part is you can throw a ball for your dog and it works pretty well in grass, but if you're throwing it into the shrubs, they're going to be wrecking the rhododendron, destroying the roses, and so grass has a place.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Is there anything you want to tell anybody? Because we're going to close out.
Well, I still go back to irrigating is for plants. We want to have a healthy ecosystem, and the plants and will make all of that happen. And they have a very important, I think, therapeutic effect. They have a calming effect, and they help with those things. They moderate our environment, and they do that. So I think if you want to do that and you want to have some healthy stuff, really you need an irrigation system to do that, because very few people have the time or energy to get all that watering right. And it's a huge investment in plants, right? I mean, so plants aren't cheap. Landscaping isn't cheap, and I know lots of people who will come in here and go, I put all this stuff in and now it's dying. What do I do? Well, now you start installing. Well, can I get somebody to do that? Yeah, in October. And, so think about that as you invest in those plants, that they do need to be watered and that stuff needs to happen.
Right. So take the thought out of sustaining your plants yourself, get the watering system in there so that you can maintain your healthy ecosystem in your garden, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you guys want more information about what's happening at WES-TECH Irrigation Systems, contact Bruce at 250-361-1573, or you can reach him by email at bruce.carter@irrigation.ca. If you want more information about what's happening in real estate, you can contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun. And follow us on YouTube, because we're trying to get our numbers up, and you will get a notification every time we go live. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Shane. Great to do this with you.
And if you know anybody who's interested, who's an entrepreneur, let me know. Hold on, actually. My dream to get a sprinkler system in my garden. Okay, a whole bunch of people just left comments. So it will take a lot of time and a lot of plants for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've answered everybody's questions. So good. If you know anybody who is an entrepreneur or runs a business who has successfully pivoted during COVID-19, we want to hear from them, and hopefully we can help them and other businesses thrive. Have a great day. Bruce?
Thanks. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay. See ya.